Sounds right.
Snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
All right, and we're rolling. I'm here today just with myself, which is okay because I'm talking about something that I have a complete interest in that I'm actually a super fanatic of, and that's MMA. That's the UFC. So this weekend, there's a huge fight. If you guys aren't MMA fans, I'd highly suggest you guys tune into this one, specifically because there's a legend who might be at the end of his career, and I'm talking about Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal, if you're not familiar with him, he grew up. He blew up, off of his street fighting videos when the internet first came out. Like Jorge fought literally, like basically for free in the Miami area. And I remember watching his fights because Jorge and I are actually the same age. And when I was in high school, I was hearing these internet fight stories like coming out, and I had to check it out myself. And I saw some of Jorge's like classic fights on the street. They were very rugged. They were very raw. They were everything you thought they would be. Like I wouldn't even equate that back then to martial arts per se, more or less just straight brawling. But even back then, when you hear Jorge Masvidal's story now, when he reflects on his life, I mean, even then you see his skill set. Like that's his natural baseline. So in the world of fighting, you got a lot of guys that train to be a fighter and they're super athletic and everything like that. But then you got guys that are like natural fighters, like true natural fighters. You can see it. Like they just naturally know how to throw a punch. They know how to transfer their weight. They know how to move and duck and like have the other hand up as the other hand's firing like a punch. Like these little fundamental movements. And I remember seeing Jorge Masvidal. If you watch his classic street fights, they're still available on the internet. You can just YouTube like Jorge Masvidal street fights. I'm sure it'll pull up or something along that line. And even then, I remember watching it and just knowing, hey, this guy's going to go somewhere, and I'm probably going to hear about him later in some capacity. And I was right. The guy ended up taking his street fighting into a more professional setting, and his journey has been crazy. The guy's fought everywhere. He's fought in the UFC, Bellator, Japan, I believe. He might have even fought in Strikeforce here. I'm just going to pull up some of his stats here. Let's pull it up right here. The guy has fought for the UFC and Bellator. He fought in Japan. He's fought for Strikeforce, Bodog fights, other organizations known as known also as AFC. There's AFC, sorry. All of these classic organizations, like Jorge has fought for them. This guy's been around forever. He has 51 fights total. Just to give you a little reference point, like a lot of fighters, they fight maybe once or twice for an entire year. Their fights like career might only be 5, 6, 7 years, 14 fights, maybe. Jorge has 51 fights. Now, the interesting thing about Jorge Masvidal too, is I followed him very closely throughout his career, and he has this nickname, and it's called Gamebred. And what Gamebred essentially means is he has like a lot of dog in him, right? Like he doesn't quit. Like his entire nickname comes from that you can't break him, that he'll keep coming until essentially he gets finished or he finishes you. And he gave himself that nickname. And for the longest time, I actually thought that was like a super rad nickname. And I kind of understood his mentality for the most part, because like we've all had that where we decide we don't want to quit at something. Like we're super in like all in on something, and you're just not going to quit. You're going to keep going until you either succeed or you fail at it. And that's a very wicked mindset to have, because that mindset, it sets the tone for everything. You can have that game-bred mindset, not just for fighting. You can have it like with your life. And even from an early age, when Jorge Masvidal was journeying on his MMA career, I really took a liking to his personality, his attitude, his mindset, and things like that. But one thing I've noticed though, and a lot of other fight fans, maybe you can you'll chime in with your opinions on this if we ever get a chance to talk about it with each other. But the thing I noticed too about Jorge Masvidal is if you look at his record, the guy has 51 fights, but he has 35 wins and 16 losses. Now, that's actually a pretty big amount of losses. But when you look up these statistics, they don't always paint the full picture of the full scope of the guy's skills and abilities. I mean, if you really take a look at all of his losses, they're always a decision loss, which means that he didn't get finished. He didn't submit. He didn't quit. He didn't get knocked out. Okay. Although he has had a loss by a TKO, as well as I believe he had a loss by a submission. That's right. Okay. But still 2 losses. And then basically the rest of them are decision losses. So I really took a notice to his mindset has some benefits as to why he succeeds in life per se, but in the cage, that the losses I've started to realize as I observed him more is that his mindset is in a way self-sabotaging. Now, what I mean by that is he fights to say he will never quit and be beat, but that is a defense first mindset in a way. It's like you're going to wait till the danger comes to you, and then you're going to battle and not let the danger finish you. As opposed to if his attitude was different, and he did make this switch with the explanation I'm about to give. He made this switch in its 2019 run. In 2019, Jorge Masvidal had 3 amazing finishes. He beat Darren Till by KO. He beat Ben Askren by KO flying knee. And also, by the way, that's the fastest knockout in UFC history, 5 seconds. He beat Nate Diaz with a TKO, and that was also for, at the time, like a homage belt that the UFC created to pay homage to like their fighters that have been to be honest, have been around, have made a splash, everyone loves them. They called it the bad motherfucker belt, and like Jorge Masvidal actually has the bad motherfucker title. He literally a belt called the BMF belt. Now, Jorge Masvidal is fascinating because like prior to that win streak he had in 2019 where he beat all these top guys, he explained he had a mindset change where he realized like he was fighting with essentially the Gamebred mentality, but he realized that limited him because again he's fighting on a defense. Like he waits for the problem to show up to him, then he has an attitude of I will not quit. I will go and fight until I either win or get finished or lose, right? But that same mindset now, it doesn't get him victories because he's not initiating the offense. He's not being proactive, you know? Like a lot of self-improvement life coaches, they spread this message about being proactive, not reactive. So in your life, you want to go and make things happen. You don't want to wait for things to happen to you and then react, right? And then I noticed there's a lot of correlations with Jorge Masvidal and his fight career, his mindset, as well as his successes. He's had the most of his successes when he changed his mentality towards a I'm gonna go and seek out the problem and I'm going to conquer it and I'm going to continue pressing forward to dominate another problem. And it compounds off of each other like this momentum success. And if you watch those fights, he had a complete different approach to each of those fights. He would start off very offensive. He initiated the punches. He initiated the kicks. He initiated the exchange. When wrestling is not his most strongest base of his skill set, but if someone tried to wrestle him, his old method would be to sprawl and push the guy away. Like, again, his Gamebred mentality, right? Like, I'm not going to quit. You're not going to take me down. Oh, you took me down. You're not going to keep me down. Oh, you kept me down. You're not going to submit me. Oh, okay. You finally submit me. But it's like he fights each step until he can overcome the adversity, if you will. But when he had most of his successes in the 2019 run, he went on offense. You watch each of those fights, Jorge moves offensively first. He's always like, he's on his balls of his feet. He's moving back and forth. He's gauging. He's setting up fakes. He's setting up feints. He's setting up the offense. And when he gets hit, he doesn't just, again, fight to prevent his loss. He fights forward again, but it's done very strategically. And at the same time, there's a lot of heart when he goes forward and fights in that manner. Now, that was at the peak of his success. Unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, he had 2 back-to-back losses to Kamaru Usman, who was the welterweight champion at the time. And when you take a look at the first loss, it was weird because I watched that fight, and the first loss was a decision loss in which Jorge Masvidal flew all the way down to Dubai to fight Kamaru Usman in, I think, short notice. I think it was like a couple weeks because he was replacing someone else. I forget the entire storyline behind that entire fight, that why he had to fly in the last minute. But I remember noticing that fight, and he kind of half reverted back to his Gamebred style, which is what got him to the UFC, but didn't give him that extreme success. So when he was fighting Kamaru Usman, he was very tentative, and he waited for Kamaru to initiate some of the offense before he proceeded again to fire back his punches. Now, you watch the second fight, Kamaru knocks him out in the second round. And again, that I remember watching, man, Jorge has went back to his complete Gamebred mentality. And that's why he, in my opinion, why he lost that fight. And by the time he fought Colby Covington, his most recent fight, and there's a whole bunch of drama surrounding that entire incident. If you guys are big MMA fanatics, you're going to realize like Colby and him used to be best friends. Colby knows the ins and outs of his like moves and everything, but he knows all the ins and outs of Colby's. It's literally like written out of a video game storyline, like best friends turned into like bitter rivals, but knowing all of each other's tricks and things in the bag. And in that fight, I really observed like Jorge absolutely turned all the way back to his original Gamebred style. Now, he did, in recent interviews, kind of alluded to potentially that he was injured going into that fight, or that a lot of things just weren't going right. But at the end of the day, hey, you lost. Everyone has all sorts of shit going on in their life at all times. So that's an explanation. Like, he's not excusing it, because excusing it means you don't actually believe that should have happened to you. But an explanation is you're explaining these were circumstances that literally led to this being way harder than it normally is, and affecting your ability to perform well. But right now, all I'm trying to say is I'm a huge Jorge Masvidal fan, and I hope that the coming up fight he comes back on this Saturday, in which he's fighting in Miami, Florida, his hometown, where all those fight videos from the street fighting days like came from. This guy's come full circle. He's 38 as well, and he's fighting Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert Burns now, this guy has also fought for the belt. Gilbert's a smaller guy. He's physically should be in a weight class probably lower than the 170-pound weight class, which is the one they're fighting in. But right now, with his fight with Gilbert right now, if he loses this one, Jorge might retire. He even said he's really considering retirement. Now, that saddens me. Guys, become one of my favorite fighters. Followed his career since I was 18, so it's like 20 years of watching someone. So this weekend, this fight is very as a fan, it's very important. You know, it's the end of an era if it is, but if it's not, he has like one last title run, because they said that if he beats Gilbert Burns, he's in a position again to fight for that belt. Now, Corey's never officially won the UFC welterweight title. That's like like many athletes that don't win the championship at the highest level in their respective sports, like Jerome McGinley, right? Like, everyone loves that guy. We're from Calgary. He's the Calgary Flames. And, you know, at the end, he went to all these other teams to try to win a Stanley Cup, but he never did. Now, like, Jorge might be in like that kind of a scenario here. And I hope he wins this week. I really want to see this guy go all the way. I want to see him take the belt. I want to see him come back and finish this career with that end goal that everyone who got into that mixed martial arts world at the end of the day is essentially going for. You know, I mean, some say you did do it for the money, but you make the most money, or you have the highest chance of making the most money when the champion. Dude, that's just the way the UFC have all their structures in place for people who are like, that's their financial structure. The higher up you get, the more you get towards a championship, then that usually correlates to more people paying to watch you. That gives you more money, because you're getting potentially a stake now into pay-per-view points and getting a percentage of that pay-per-view money. And anyway, it's Jorge Masvidal. He's fighting Gilbert this weekend, and I hope he doesn't. I hope he remembers the magic that occurred in 2019, because I truly believe that's his key to becoming the champion. He needs to fight back on a more offensive manner. He needs to not second guess. He needs to not react. He needs to initiate the exchanges. He needs to not be reckless, you know, because there's like, I'm not saying close your eyes and start swinging your fists, but your movements should always be initiating. Like, you're cutting the angle off first on your opponent. You're leading the dance per se, you know, like kind of like when I think about it, it's like a dance analogy. He's fought majority of his career. If you think about like two people doing like a ballroom dancing routine, he's not the one leading. He's following. You know, he's following, and then he doesn't quit. That's the kind of observation I took, and it kind of shows in his statistics. Again, most of his losses were just decision. He was never finished, but he come close to being able to finish the guy. And a lot of those times, it would have been more highly probable that he would have finished the guy if he just committed more to the mentality that he had developed in 2019 when he went on that winning streak. So, but when I think about Jorge Masvidal too, it just goes in this weird philosophical arena for myself, because I start to realize that there's a metaphor for that in life. Like I've been doing my best, feeling my best when I try to pursue something in life. Like I don't wait for life to happen to me. I go and try to make things happen. And then as I try to make things happen, then I take the adversity as it shows up in that approach versus taking the adversity when it comes to you, right? It's no different than just some light warfare thinking for a second. But do you want to wait to be invaded, or do you want to invade? Right? It's like so because if you're waiting to be invaded, sure, like you could defend you can defend and probably do okay. But will that stop the invader from trying to come back again? No, you probably have to do some level of invading after a while to show that you're willing to not get invaded on, if that makes any sense, right? Now it's like right now it's in that metaphor, I've just seen that work so much in my life. Like so right now I just really hope that he takes that mentality again and gets the victory. So something just like fascinating altogether with observing these things, because I find fighting has so much poetic metaphors in it. Like whenever I run into problems in life, I think about fighting. Because I've done martial arts myself, like for large chunks of my life. I've also trained MMA, and I've trained some wrestling as well, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, like lift weights. Done a lot of sparring myself, just through the years I've trained in various martial arts. Did karate when I was a kid, and I also myself gotten a couple like street scraps here and there back in the day. But with all that in mind, I really wish that I had this understanding of the different approaches to life and sports in general from the fighting philosophy arena, because in fighting you can essentially get all the analogies you need to make the right moves to get that information to correlate to a better understanding of what a good mindset is to go into accomplishing something big, right? It's no different than, hey, you want to start a business, or like you want to go approach something and get after it, is no different than a fighter being like, as an example, I want to go after the champion. I want to fight the guys in the top 5. Like they're moving forward. Now, when you're moving forward, it forces you to get better at everything, because it's the you're not reacting anymore. You're going forward. And if you're going forward, you're trying to conquer. And if you're trying to conquer it, you need to up your game in all aspects. So by moving forward and chasing the championship, rather than having the competition keep you stagnated and you're only fighting off the competition to maintain your position, it's like you're not going to develop as much skill, because you're not pursuing the problem and anticipating it. You're reacting. So when you're reacting, you only have the skills you already have at that point to deal with the problem at hand. But if you are going forward, you're creating more skills to try to predict the insane problems that lie ahead, right? So right now there's a lot of philosophy to this thing, and and right now I felt compelled to pour out my opinions on Jorge Masvidal for this fight, because he's not just an MMA fighter. To me, his career has had I've taken away from it a lot of interesting philosophical standpoints, if you will, exactly what I just brought up. And like Masvidal, whether he realizes it or not, this guy affects a lot of people. I mean, he has millions of followers on social media. The guy's a bona fide superstar in the fighting arena, and it just reminds me again that no matter how you live your life, you don't know how you're impacting someone else, So essentially, you should always try to be doing your best, and it will only spread more overall good and productive energy, if you will. So right now, I wish Jorge Masvidal all the luck in the world. I hope everyone tunes in to this fight. It's happening this Saturday, and right now, so the timing I believe should be 8 p.m. In Calgary anyway. I'm going to be watching it for sure. I'm going to find a bar. And for everyone who doesn't watch MMA, doesn't watch UFC, you guys should take the time and make an event out of it this weekend. And that's not even the main fight. Like this weekend, that's the co-main event. That means the second highlight of the night. But the main event is actually Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya. Now, I'm a big fan of both. I follow both's career as well, not as closely as I have followed Jorge Masvidal's, but But right now, that one's going to be an insane fight as well. Israel Adesanya, his nickname is Stylebender, because he's like an anime nerd, and he fights like a video game. He literally moves like a video game. Like he'll have poses in the middle of his fights, and in the middle of the fight, he'll pose, he'll look at his opponent and like do the come here thing, like literally like out of a Street Fighter video game. But what's fascinating about his fight is, so Israel was like the champion for the longest time in his division, 185 pounds. But the guy he's finally fighting now, Alex Pereira, he's beaten him 3 times. So Alex has beaten Israel Adesanya twice in kickboxing and now once in MMA. So the odd thing too is, like, Adesanya, for a while there, people thought he was unbeatable because he was just on such a run. He was just dominating everyone. His fighting game is pretty well rounded. Like, striking is like 10 out of 10. Game planning, confidence, fearlessness, like all that's up there. The whole, if you will, would be more or less his grappling against like a bigger guy. As we've seen him, he moved up in a weight class and he fought Jan Blachowicz. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. He's a Polish light heavyweight champion, but he definitely used his size. He used some wrestling, I believe, in their fight, and it showed like Israel's wrestling, like his wrestling might be a 7 out of 10, but because his striking and his MMA IQ is so good, he was able to negate his opponents and make them fight his fight. He's also really good at psychological warfare. He'll find a way to get on your skin in a creative, clever way, or he will just do stuff that his spectacle almost distracts you. Like, he's one of the fighters that he will literally he didn't do this every time, but a couple of his fights he came out to literally like a full sequence dance routine. Like, and his opponent is probably thinking, because I know this is what I was thinking. I'm like, this is a legit fight with another trained killer. The fact that this guy had the confidence to literally still practice a dance sequence coming into the cage, that just makes me think this guy has so much confidence that he's going to kick my ass that he has time to go learn a dance routine. That would mess someone up in their head. But now here, this is the funny part. He didn't do that for Pereira when they fought, so it's almost like he was taken out of his element. Like, the same thing that I was talking about, how Jorge Masvidal's successes stem from him being offensive instead of having the Gamebred never quit. He's having this Gamebred on top of it, this conquering mentality. Like Israel Adesanya, he usually wins when he's super himself. He's relaxed. He's not overthinking it. He's not thinking at all, really. He's just being himself. The himself that we know is like into dancing and doing all this crazy shit. And then, but then for Pereira, he didn't do any of that because Pereira had already beat him twice in kickboxing, and then he transitioned to MMA. So it's weird. It's almost like Pereira just has Israel Adesanya's number. Now, Alex Pereira, the interesting thing about him too right now, I believe he's undefeated, but he's only at 7. No. I was about to say he's undefeated in MMA. He has 1 loss, but he only has 7 wins. He only has 8 total fights in MMA. That's it. 8 total fights in MMA. And he beat the champ. Now, everyone just assumes that means that Alex Pereira is an extreme phenom. Now, I'm not saying he's not. The guy's amazing, but the reality is, a lot of fighters realize right now that he just, sometimes in life, it's weird. You just have someone that has your number. It's just some kind of destiny thing. Like Alex, like, I'm not saying destiny as in a fluke, but Alex just stylistically, he's basically many ways the same fighter as Israel Adesanya, except for Israel's striking is more flashy, more like a video game. Alex's is just like perfect fundamentals, like dialed in. Like, Israel Adesanya might throw punches and elbows at angles that you don't think of traditionally, because it doesn't set up the most optimal position for you to push off your foot and transfer your power. But he still gets the point of contact on a lot of his opponents. But Alex Pereira, like, every time he has that stance, that kickboxer stance, his feet are planted, he sits on his punches, like, he generates so much power, and from there, his abilities to just outclass anyone in the stand-up department is a beautiful work of art. It's literally a work of art. But Alex Pereira, he's not known for things like wrestling. Like, again, the odd thing too is, a lot of people, a lot of MMA guys, they're saying that Alex Pereira, respectfully, they're saying this, okay? Because again, like, they're not sandbagging him and saying he's a fluke champion. But the reality is he got brought in to fight Israel because there was an absolute storyline there. Because at the time, Israel was just on a tear, like essentially undefeated. And Alex Pereira, was just the last guy to beat him twice in another form of combat, which is kickboxing. So there was something there. Now, it should have been more on paper probable that Israel should have been able to beat him in MMA, because Israel has literally so Alex, we just said, has 8 fights total. Israel has let's take a look at how many fights he's had here. He's at 25 fights. So he had 3 times the experience of Alex. And you think that he should have been able to defeat him. But the problem there is the main thing that could defeat Alex Pereira would be if you had a high clinching wrestling game, like taking him to the ground. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have training, but if you go on a little video game scale, his striking, Izzy's 10 out of 10, Alex Pereira might be 10.5 out of 10, exceeding perfection, right? But then his wrestling might be actually a 5 out of 10. But the problem is Izzy's at a 7 out of 10 wrestling, Alex at a 5 out of 10 wrestling. They both didn't choose to wrestle. They both chose to strike. And then there was some wrestling, but not as much as there probably could have been. As a warfare, I can imagine as a warfare tactician, you would imagine it would make the most sense to throw the opponent in a loop and just go right to wrestling him, especially if you have 3 times the MMA experience. So I really feel like Izzy missed out on a chance to be more tactical in that regard. Now, who knows what really happened? I mean, for all I know, he might be injured. There's been so many times in the past where a fighter who's a wrestler, people don't know why they don't see them wrestling. They're like, oh man, this guy's all of a sudden trying to change into a stand-up fighter. No, sometimes you realize, that guy actually has he ripped his knee. He's his ACL or MCL is barely hanging on, and he doesn't want his opponent to know. He didn't want to pull out the fight because he didn't want to lose the money. So he just had to adjust his fighting on his feet, standing, punches and kicks, right? So, but none of that was revealed. So in their first fight, so I can only go off of that. Israel got bested by Alex Pereira, but right now it's in a weird spot because a lot of fight fans and other fight experts, if you will, they don't think Alex Pereira's title reign will last a super long time, because right now at 185, they just have to get him paired up with like a wrestler, Now, I believe Jared Cannonier has some wrestling here. That was Alex Pereira's last win here. And let me take a quick read. Blam, blam, blam. Okay. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if he was a wrestler then. But either way, let me just take one more quick glance here at Alex Pereira's record. I mean, yeah, he's beaten. Oh, sorry, I'm on Izzy's fight record here. Give me one sec. Yeah, no, he hasn't fought any super wrestler. I mean, Shawn Strickland's a well-rounded MMA fighter. That was Pereira's last guy that he beat before beating Israel Adesanya. And then he decisioned a fighter named Bruno Silva, which I can't pull up off the top of my head who he is. I probably recognize his face if I see him. I just can't match the name to the face right now. But again, yeah, never really been tested by a wrestler yet. So this is one of those things where there's been a lot of fighters now chomping at the bit to fight Alex Pereira who have a really strong wrestling background. One's like Hamza Chimaev. So Hamza Chimaev is a Chechnyan fighter who's on a tear. But Hamza Chimaev actually supposedly, he usually fights at 170. Now he might move up to 185 and he's confident now that he can just take the belt like that. So that division is in a weird spot. It's like one of those rare times where the champion, he's respected, but a lot of people are gunning after him because stylistically they're like, oh dude, I'm not going to be like Israel Adesanya. I'm going to just straight put a wrestling clinic on this guy. So right now that's the interesting thing. I think in order for mixed martial arts to continue to have this realm of not credibility, because that's not the word I'm trying to say, because fighting is real. UFC is real. As far as we can see, it's not like other fights where there's been some proven fight fixing. Like in UFC, I mean, other than that the thing that happened with the there's a pro fighter who essentially is under investigation right now for potentially fixing fights. And I don't want to get too into that storyline there. If you're big in MMA and you follow that, then but that's the most recent situation that I can recall where there was a known fight fixing thing going on where they're literally agreeing who's going to win behind the scenes, and even that still hasn't been fully proven yet. Unlike in boxing, there's been loads of corruption. We know fighters throw fights for sure, but right now, as far as the UFC goes, like they're from what I understand, there isn't that fight fixing element to fully really worry about right now, especially MMA. There's just so many more avenues. You can fight standing, you can fight on the ground, there's just so many harder ways to orchestrate a fixed fight in my opinion. Now, is it possible? Like, yeah, it's always possible. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but for the most part, this is legit. And right now, to kind of circle back to just my point right now, the 185-pound division is a very interesting one, because even if, say, Alex Pereira beats Israel Adesanya again this weekend, that would make him have 4 wins over Izzy, and that's the only guy that Izzy can't beat. For some reason, that's his kryptonite. It leaves a door open for a very quick potential title switch if he fights a wrestler. Now, I'm not saying Alex Pereira can't up his game to the point where it's not this for sure thing that he loses to every wrestler that fights him. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying probability wise, there's lower chance of him just steamrolling his opponent and walking away with a super easy victory. So those are the top 2 fights on the card that's going to be happening this weekend here. And right now, I'm super excited. I love watching MMA. Huge fan. Love combat sports in general. And sorry about that, guys. Love combat sports in general. And right now, I'm just super excited. I'm pumping this fight up. I think everyone who doesn't watch MMA should give it a go. And specifically this weekend for the co-main and the main events. So right now, if I had to do picks right now for those 2 fights, I think Jorge Masvidal will win. I really believe. I think he'll win. Do I think he'll win easy? No. I think it's going to be a war against Gilbert Burns. I think if I had to give my prediction, I think Jorge will win this in 5 rounds, a decision. That's what I think will happen. I want him to go back to that 2019 killer instinct, Jorge Masvidal. But right now, there's just way too many factors that negate me being able to see that victory super clearly in my head. But I do believe that because he has nothing. Like, this is his last hurrah. He's 38. So I think that if his being, if you will, his will to succeed can be pushed to his absolute super limits, I think now's the time. Because think about it. He's 38. His goal is just to get that belt, man. Like, and because his career has been so full up to this point. So all he needs to do is hang on for 2 more good fights, beat Gilbert Burns, take that 6 months or whatever to recover, and then get that final title shot. Win that belt, and then maybe fight and try to defend it one more time, and then officially retire. And like, that can all occur in the next year and a half, especially if he fights every 3-4 months. And I would hope to see that happen for Jorge Masvidal. He's been an inspiration to me in many ways, even never meeting the guy or whatever. But just again, how I've observed his career, his mentality, just the philosophies that I've gained from watching him. So right there, like it's. I hope everyone enjoys his fights as much as I do, and this might be your last chance to see him if he fights this Saturday. So give it a watch. And as far as the main event goes, I think Alex Pereira just beats Izzy again. I think he has his number, but again, I like Alex Pereira. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of Alex Pereira, but what I'm really curious about is how long he can keep that belt if the next guy he fights is instantly someone like Khamzat Chimaev, like just a super wrestler who's not gonna. Hamza's pretty well rounded too. He knocks guys out. So I don't know. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just funny how these things have such a short lifespan, for certain moments of victory per se, or like glory moments. Cause like he just has a glaring, not as awesome skill set in his wrestling compared to his striking. So, but just again, shows you life is not predictable. Life's not fair. Like, cause like on paper, Alex Pereira should never have really gotten the chance to fight Izzy. And on paper, had he fought Izzy, he should have in theory lost because Izzy has way more experience and Izzy should have been more tactical to do the wrestling. So, but he didn't do any of that, and then the guy ended up becoming champion, right? So right now it just shows you again, like it in life, anything can happen. All you can do is just kind of come up with your plan, have it be as rational as possible. But then as you go forward and try to execute, you got to roll with punches and just go on the fly and improvise when things are shifting on you, like in a moment and things like that. And also take the opportunities when they come as well. Is something I've learned, because Alex Pereira could have gotten his own head and been like, oh man, I've beaten Izzy a bunch, but that's in kickboxing, not MMA. And then, oh, I'm not ready yet. No, but he took the chance. He went in there and then he smashed him and got the belt, and now forever he's a champion in the UFC. Like, no matter how he got there, it just shows, again, you just got to try offensively is the thing I take away. Like, go after it, get after it, right? Anyway, yeah, this is my solo rant. I'm super pumped. I'm super pumped for the fights this weekend, and hopefully I did my job here by pumping you guys up who don't usually watch fighting or people who are also huge MMA fans. Then, man, this Saturday is gonna be a great time. So in the end, yes, in conclusion, I think Jorge Masvidal wins, and I think Alex Pereira wins this weekend. So, and then the rest of the card has. Let me take a look here. I was so pumped up by the main event that I didn't actually take the time here to fully research who else was on the rest of this card here. And let me just pull this up here. So I'm just going to rattle them off. So I already talked about the top two fights. So the third main fight is going to be Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. I go with Rob Font. Welterweight. Oh, Kevin Holland's fighting Santiago Ponzinibbio. Okay. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland on that one. To non-MMA fans, this is just me rattling off who I think will win. Don't take this as gambling advice. Raul Rosas Jr. I believe I'm pronouncing his name correct. This guy's an animal, man. He's 18 now. He was 17. He wasn't even 18 yet when he fought in the UFC. It's crazy. I mean, the guy definitely looks like a full-grown man just without facial hair and stuff, but just like, that's insane. This guy's just turned 18. He's on the main card. I don't know who he's fighting. His name is Christian Rodriguez. So, Raul Sosa Jr. is on a tear right now. He's getting super, super popular, super fast. So I hope he continues that. Obviously, I don't know who Christian Rodriguez is, so I wish both fighters luck in that regard. Then preliminary card, we got Kevin Gastelum versus Chris Curtis. I'm going to go with Kevin Gastelum. Michelle Watterson, is fighting Luana Pinheiro. Go with Michelle Watterson. I got that one. Gerald Mushart versus Joe Pfeiffer. Go with Gerald Mushart. Carl Williams, Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman, I've seen him fight. I don't remember who Carl Williams is. So I don't know, but if I'm just going with who I know, then I believe Chase Sherman. That's the prelim card. And then, I mean, that's the main preliminary card. And then there's the early prelim card. These are usually when you got your newer fighters coming in. I'm unfamiliar with almost everyone on that row, so I'm not going to make picks for that one there. But anyway, I just rattled off who I think is going to win what. And yeah, and that's going to be it. So UFC 287 this weekend. Bar update. We're still constructing. It's a pain in the ass. It's just the way it goes. Hopefully we're going to be open middle of April, if not middle of April, last week April, if not last week April, beginning of May. It's literally touch and go. As we finish our construction, we're going to get in our business license inspection, Alberta Health Services inspection, and go for our liquor license there, which we've done all the paperwork leading up. And right now it's just waiting because the construction has to finish before the next steps can proceed. So for everyone who's still wondering when we're opening, we're working hard to open as soon as we can. I'm eager because I also want to start showing UFCs at my own bar, and I want to do a Kaks bar and podcast fight companion, which is where I'll be watching UFC fights, streaming them, and then commentating on them as they go down. And I would love to do that, and I hope to be doing that soon. And I hope to grab other fight fanatics in there as well. We can just shoot the shit about this stuff. Okay, anyway, this is my solo rant. I went 38 minutes. Good for me. Go me. Alrighty. And yeah, nothing left to say here. I hope everyone has a great night. Enjoyed my rant here on mixed martial arts. And go watch UFC this weekend, all right? Okay. Have a great night. Take care.